Do you have a 7, 8, or 9-year-old child thinking that it might be the right time to talk to them about puberty? Well, it is, and today's topic is all about how to do that.
Welcome to the Beehive Doc Talks with Dr. Blair Rolnick. As a pediatrician and mother herself, Dr. Rolnick is here to answer your most pressing parenting questions and guide you through the tough spots.
Welcome back to Be Kind Pediatrics. For those of you who are new to the show, my name is Dr. Blair Rolnick. I'm a board-certified pediatrician and mom myself. Today we're talking about how to talk to your child about puberty. So first of all, it's a good idea to have a concrete idea of what exactly puberty is. So puberty is the time when a child's body changes and becomes an adult body capable of sexual reproduction. And when should you start thinking about having these conversations? So I actually recommend that you start thinking and having these conversations at quite a young age. The typical or average age of puberty here in the United States for girls is 8 to 13 years old. And for boys, it's 9 to 14 years old. So you definitely want to have the conversation well before puberty starts. And what are the early signs or beginning signs of puberty in girls and boys? So for girls, that's going to be breast bud enlargement, typically followed by pubic hair. And in boys, it's going to be testicular enlargement, again, followed by pubic hair. There's all different factors that affect when puberty starts in a child. So if you look at our last episode, we were talking about early puberty and what might affect when your child goes through puberty, including genetics, environmental factors, nutrition, diet, health, and family history. And again, just want to echo that if you think that your child is going through puberty too early or too late, it definitely warrants a conversation with your pediatrician. The other reason I say start early is because typically many school systems do have a health curriculum that involves talking about puberty. And ideally, you want to have this conversation, or a child should have this conversation with a trusted adult before they hear about it in a classroom setting amongst their peers. So it can be helpful to have a good idea about what your local school system's health curriculum is and when they plan to start talking about puberty so you can get a little bit ahead of the ball. The second thing that I recommend is that this conversation happens often. So you don't necessarily have to have one big talk about puberty and that's it and it never happens again. You might have like a little introductory conversation early on and then often are talking about your child's body to them and their changes their body might go through or the changes their siblings are going through or their peers or friends. So you really want to normalize the conversation with your child about their body and their own health. So I think for many parents, it's a daunting task thinking about talking to your child about puberty, especially if it wasn't a conversation that you regularly had with your parents growing up. So I do recommend that you prepare a little bit ahead of time. And now there's tons of great resources out there to make yourself feel comfortable and prepared to have the conversation. You really want to think about your body language and make sure that you're comfortable first so that your child feels comfortable. Later in the talk, I'm going to share some great book and video resources with you all and some questions to consider prepping. If you don't know the answer to a question, that's totally fine. Just be honest. Say, I don't know the answer to that question, but it's a really good question and I'm going to loop in your pediatrician or maybe we can research that topic together. And that's a really great opportunity and segue into having a second conversation about puberty. The other thing that I specifically recommend, and this is really specific to young girls, is you want to think about practicing period and menstruation hygiene with them. So I do recommend getting some pads. I typically recommend young women start off with pads and avoid tampons early on and practice with them. Show them what a pad looks like, show them how to put it on, how often to change it. Make a plan to have hygiene products available to them in school. Maybe if you can anticipate having a plan with your child, if you want them to be able to go home when they have their first period, if they don't feel comfortable telling the nurse, having like a secret password or passcode that means, Mom, I had my first period and I really want to come home. So here's some questions I think that are helpful to prepare ahead of time, especially if you're finding this conversation to be a little bit daunting. So for girls, they might ask you, why are my breasts growing? Or why do my breasts all of a sudden hurt? When will I get my period? What is my period? And why does it happen? Does everybody get their period? And does it always happen at the same age for everyone? Why is my skin changing? Is vaginal discharge normal? Why am I all of a sudden feeling different? Like I have different emotions or my mood feels different. Maybe I'm feeling really tired, and why is that happening? And of course, how do I use a tampon or pad? And again, all of these questions are questions I typically see that children are either being exposed to through social media content or with their peers. So it's helpful to get ahead of that and make sure that your child has a trusted adult who they can come to for these questions. For boys, they might ask, why are my testes getting bigger? Why is my voice changing? Am I going to start to grow facial hair? A big one are what are wet dreams and why is that happening? If they don't know what an erection is, what is an erection? And why does that occur? How long will it last? Again, why is my skin changing? Why are my emotions changing? And what is puberty doing to my body? Another big topic I like to talk about with parents is it can sometimes be helpful to have the conversation with your child, whether they're a girl or a boy, about the opposite sex. So talking to young girls about what puberty is like for boys and what they go through, and for young boys, what young girls go through. That really helps them understand what maybe some of their peers are going through. And again, normalizes talking about their body and normalizes that these feelings are normal. Everybody is going through this. This is a sign that your body is healthy and normal. And I just want to pause and take a special note here on neurodivergent children. So if you have a neurodivergent child, I really recommend that you also still, of course, start thinking about talking to puberty about them and how you're going to prepare them for puberty. Lean on your community for this. Get your peds doc involved, therapist, other parents in your community, and prepare your child. And maybe, again, if they're female, practice hygiene. We're going to talk again at the end of this video about specific aids that might be helpful for you, books, videos, storyboards, etc. So then now you've kind of prepared your questions and your answers. The next kind of logical question is, well, how do I do this, Dr. Rolnick? And I think that you want to approach this as casually as possible. I don't think that you need to sit them down necessarily, but do have a quiet and private environment where they can feel like they have the space and privacy to ask you questions safely. Use the correct language. This is so important, right? We talk about this even at a very young age. It's really important to use the appropriate language for body parts with your children. So calling breasts, breasts, penis, their penis, referring to their testicles, pubic hair, vagina, vaginal discharge. Get comfortable using this language. Because if you're not comfortable, your children are likely going to sense that you're not, and they're going to feel uncomfortable. And secondly, it's really important for them to know the proper words for their body parts. Plan to have the first conversation really short and sweet. Maybe it's just that you're talking about what their body parts are. Maybe you just say, hey, sweetie, I want to talk to you about all the different parts of your body. These are your breasts. This is your vagina. These are testicles and a penis. This is vaginal pubic hair, and this is what that means. Plan on keeping it short and sweet to begin with and leaving the book open-ended for them to ask questions. Most children, especially young children, are very curious, and so they're going to have follow-up questions for you later on. Also, normalizing talking about their body in puberty really leaves a nice door open for when they get older to talk with them about other sensitive topics, those topics like sex, drugs, alcohol. So start with puberty because it's actually probably an easier and more age-appropriate topic to begin with. And then that will leave a really nice doorway open for them to trust you to have more difficult conversations. So this is the part that most parents are most interested in when they come into my office, resources. Here are some good books that I recommend for children, actually. I do recommend parents that you read the book ahead of time. Make sure it's a book that you agree with and that you trust and you think is a good resource for your child. And then go ahead and either read it with them or allow them to read it on their own and maybe talk about it, set up a time to talk about it later or a time to talk about it in bits. The first book I really like is The Care and Keeping of You. This is an American Girl series book. And I like this book because the books are tailored based on age. So there's books for younger girls and for older girls. They cover topics like puberty, hygiene, and most importantly, emotional changes. Another great book is It's Perfectly Normal. Body Changes, Growing Up, Sex and Sexual Health. This is by Robbie Harris. This book is really aimed at a broader range of topics like puberty, sexuality, reproductive health. It's very straightforward and pretty comprehensive. For the boys, there's specifically a book called Guy Stuff, the Body Book for Boys. This is by Karen Natterson. This book is specifically for young boys, young to older boys, and it addresses topics such as physical changes during puberty, hygiene, and emotional changes. Another great book is What's Happening to My Body. This is by Linda Maduras. Sorry, I'm probably butchering some of these names, but this is a series of books. So it's a bunch of separate books for boys and girls. And it addresses puberty-related body changes, emotions, and sexuality in a really clear and very respectful manner. There's also the What's Happening to My Body book for girls. That's also by Linda Maduras. This book covers puberty-related changes in girls' bodies, specifically emotions and personal hygiene. Sex is a Funny Word. This is by Corey Silverberg. The book introduces concepts like bodies, gender, and sexuality. Again, it's a really respectful and diverse book that talks about a bunch of different experiences. Lastly, but not least, this is again more specific for young boys, The Boy's Guide to Growing Up by Phil Wilkinson. This book is really aimed at covering physical and emotional changes during puberty, as well as practical advice on things like hygiene and self-care. So these are just a few books to start off with. I recommend them because I find their content to be informative. I think that they're approachable in their language. They're sensitive to emotional changes, which I think is a really important part of talking about puberty with children. And I do think it gives them the experience and the topics about the physical changes as well. Again, I recommend that parents and caregivers read these books ahead of time and choose a book that they feel best suits their child's age, maturity level, and their individual needs. I also want to talk about videos and video content specifically because we now have access, and so do our children, to the amazing world of the internet. And it has its good and bad, but here is an area where it might really shine to have some video content as well as literature, book content to go through with your child. So a great, amazing resource is Amaze. I'll start off with Amaze Junior because this is a YouTube channel that really focuses on animated videos for younger children. So this is really going to be children more like ages 4 to 10. They cover topics about their bodies, puberty, and relationships in a way that is developmentally appropriate and engaging for younger children. Like Amaze Junior, there's also Amaze. Amaze is also a YouTube channel that provides animated videos. It's suitable for older children and adolescents. So this is going to be the 10 to 14-year-old age. And their videos really cover a wide range of topics, not just puberty, but sexual health, relationships. They use age-appropriate language and visuals. I find it a really nice adjunct and tool for parents to use. There's Kids Health video. Kids Health has always been a trusted source for pediatric health information. They have a series of videos on their YouTube channel that explains puberty and puberty-related changes. BBC Teach. So BBC Teach has a Growing Up series. This is a series of educational videos called Growing Up, which covers puberty and puberty-related topics. I think this is better suited to children who are a little bit older or adolescents because they take a very factual approach to understanding puberty. And then, of course, PBS Kids. So PBS Kids has a series called It's My Body. It's on their website. It's designed to help children really understand their bodies, including changes that happen during puberty. It's, again, designed to be educational and supportive for children and their families. So let's now talk about resources that are tailored specifically to children with autism. Finding resources that talk about puberty tailored specifically to autism can be super beneficial. And I find that they have materials that may be constructive, such as visual materials that present things in a clear and understandable manner. So here's some resources that I found helpful. Growing Up book for boys, What Boys on the Autism Spectrum Need to Know. This is by David Hartman. This book is specifically written for boys who have autism, and it covers puberty-related topics. Again, it's pretty straightforward and it has a very nice visual add to it. So just like the Growing Up book for boys, there's the Growing Up Guide for girls, What Girls on the Autism Spectrum Need to Know, also by David Hartman. Similar to the boys version, this book is tailored to girls with autism and addresses puberty-related changes, and emotions, and has a very nice visual component. Lastly, I like What's Happening to Tom. This is by Kate Reynolds. This book is designed for boys with autism and other special needs and helps them understand puberty and the changes that come with it. Online resources. So Autism Speaks is a great website, and it has tons of resources and articles for all things related to autism, but they also have information included about puberty for children with autism. They have a toolkit that's really nice on there for families that covers various aspects of autism and development. So some things you might be able to work on with your pediatrician or your therapist are social stories. So creating a personalized social story about puberty can be a really effective method for helping children with autism understand puberty in a step-by-step manner that uses really simple language or visual aids. Having visual support, so calendars and charts and diagrams that help children with autism understand the sequence of changes that happens during puberty. It helps explain hygiene routines can be really helpful. Again, Amaze offers great animated series that explains puberty in a clear and engaging manner. And Amaze Junior or Amaze Regular might be content that you feel is helpful or appropriate for your child with autism who responds, maybe like specifically a child who responds well to visual or animated content. It's really important, again, to select resources and materials that match your child's development and communication style. So whether it's using visual supports, having more structured communication, repetition to help them understand the topic of puberty and the changes that their body is going to go through. And again, thinking about maybe practicing some of the self-care and hygiene routines ahead of time, specifically for girls, using pads and potential deodorant. Again, for boys, thinking about deodorant and self-care and hygiene ahead of time and practicing that ahead of time can be really helpful and empowering. So overall, I hope you guys found this content to be helpful. If you liked it, please subscribe to our channel and give us a follow. If you have any questions, please leave them below. If you have any helpful tips for other members of the community, also please feel free to leave those below.
Thank you for watching The Beehive Doc Talks with Dr. Blair Rolnick. For more episodes and her practice, visit BeKindPediatrics.com, and don't forget to subscribe for more parenting tips wherever you get your podcasts. This information is for educational purposes only. It is not medical advice. Always seek medical advice from a qualified physician.